Good day, everyone, morning or evening, wherever you are. Welcome to the 17th class of Aparokshanubhuti with Binaji. Binaji, thank you so much for taking the really careful effort on these classes. Prakash has pointed this out before, but if people take note of the way that Bindo does classes, they're very carefully strung together. He often ties the beginning of one class into the end of the other. And doesn't just share the text with us, but really helps us understand how this applies to our life. And I think this is especially an opportunity with the Aparokshanubhuti if we're really reflecting on and wanting to discuss with Bindo in the Q&A afterwards, how this really relates to our life, assuming that we're coming to these classes because there's really something we want to discover that's going to have a profound effect on this life that we're living and how we experience it. So welcome everybody to the 17th class. I'm going to make some general announcements, and after that, if not already, the hand raising and chat will be turned off so that we can focus on the lecture. And then for anyone who's new or listening to the replays, there's about an hour lecture more or less, and then there's a half hour of Q&A where people can come up and discuss anything about the class with Bindo. So again, it's a kind of a different text along the lines of how we actually try to assimilate these understanding into the way that we're living. So above in the Dropbox, there's the English translation of I think it's 144 verses of Aparokshanubhuti, and then in the chat, there's a Sanskrit version that has a Sanskrit commentary, because there's not an English translation of a commentary at this time in the world. And then when Bindaji gives his lectures, he works partly off that commentary, and then he also is giving us his view on how this applies and what it means. So those are the documents. This week, today, Friday, and next Wednesday and Friday, we'll have classes here at this usual time, 8:30 p.m. IST, which is 11 a.m. Eastern, on the same days, Wednesday and Friday. Also, this coming Sunday, which is 2 days from now, we'll have the open discussion for an hour and a half. But to repeat the announcement that a week from this coming Sunday, so 9 days from now, there will not be an open discussion. Bindo's traveling to be with family, and because of this time zone where he's going, then there'll be approximately a 3-month period where the classes will be differently timed in this manner. What will happen for the people who are basing their time off of IST is that at 6:30 a.m. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, there will be a gathering, yet to be announced if the Monday's a Q&A in general or an open discussion, or if they're all classes. But Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 6:30 a.m. IST. What this does for people who are counting their time off the opposite side of the world is that the classes are no longer on the same day. They are on Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Sorry, that's 9 p.m. Eastern. Sorry, I was converting it to where I am. I'm not Eastern. But essentially what happens is that the class shifts to the prior day. So I just watch the Clubhouse calendar. Prakash and I have been talking. Once we shift over, hopefully Clubhouse will correctly convert. But do realize that if you're hearing people reference Monday, Wednesday, Friday, that's only true depending on which side of the earth you're on. And the way that this is going will shift your days for some people to the day before. So that's a bit confusing, but Prakash and I thought it would be good to kind of hammer this into people's minds. So again, watch your Clubhouse calendar and things will stay the same as they are for another week or so. What else? Replays here, especially for the Sunday discussions. They're mostly here. YouTube channel, Advaita Retold. All the current classes get uploaded each time within a couple days. Many other Upanishad classes are also there. Other text, such as Nasadiya Sukta, and the first Aparokshanubhuti from several years ago and so forth are there. So make use of that YouTube channel, Advaita Retold. Again, sorry that was long, but I think there may be a little bit of confusion for some people about the upcoming time change that'll last for about 3 months. And of course, for those of us that go through fall time shifts of 1 hour, the time of the room will shift also accordingly. So, okay, thank you very much, everybody, and over to you, Bindo.
Thank you, Atmisha. Thank you, Prakash. Welcome all. I'm not taking further time into repeating what Atmisha has already announced. So let us get into the class today. Om Namo Brahmadibhyo Brahma Vidya Sampradaya Kartrubhyo Vamsha Rishibhyo Mahadbhyo Namo Gurubhyaha Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Loga Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashakritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Īśvaro Gururatmeti Murtibheda Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. The Aparokshanubhuti. Sriharim Paramanandam Ubadeshtaram Īśvaram Vyavakam Sarvalokanam Karanam Tam Namamyaham. So we did the 39th verse in the last class, where the objection was raised by the opponent, saying that if the self is different from all bodies like gross, subtle and causal, etc., doesn't that contradict the Vedantic teaching? So the reply given by Swami Vidyaranya is that no, there is no contradiction which is arising out of that. The subtle body is defined by qualities like invisibility, changeability, multiplicity in the sense through birth in various bodies, and being knowable. They are objects. It is connected to the various physical forms and is dominated by the mind and therefore unstable. The self, on the contrary, is eternal and aparoksha, directly known by without any medium or any pramana. It is a direct knowledge. Self is also changeless. It doesn't change whenever the gross body, subtle body, or the causal body goes through the changes. The knower of these changes, the self, is changeless, and therefore he is the witness for the changes, or witness for each of the changes and each of the body functions. Though the doership and enjoyership appears to be there in the self, due to the subtle body identification, they can be truly investigated and will vanish when the false superimposition is removed through the knowledge of Atman or self-knowledge. Therefore, Vedanta remains consistent and free from these contradictions which you are now raising up, that, whether it will be contradicting to the Vedantic principles, unlike the dualistic views. So now we'll go to the 40th verse from today, right now. Evam dehadvayadasnya dvayad anyaha atma Puruṣa Īśvaraha sarvātmā sarvarūpascha sarvātītoham avyayah. Evam, in this manner or thus, atma dehadvayad anyaha, this self in each one of us is different from the other bodies, which is the sthūla and sūkṣma, or the subtle and the gross body. Aham, the I, the ego, It is not the ego here. There is a mistake in this English translation. The substratum of I, or we can take, there are two ways in which it can be explained also, which is being done by Swami Vidyaranya, is that, okay, aham can be taken as the self. In that case, it is not the ego. But the ego is also called aham in Sanskrit. So therefore the ego is now using the substratum of the self for its own existence. Whereas the aham, which is the substratum, or which is the basis or the real truth, is avyayaha, is immutable, which is called the Puruṣa in the form of self. He himself is called the Īśvara. Why? Because sarvāndara, it is indweller to everything. Therefore, is sarvātmā, is the self of all being. Svarūpa is the svarūpa of all forms, or is having the forms. Sarvātīta means it is not limited to the individual bodies. It is transcending everything. Therefore, immutable Atman, the substratum of the ego, is just different from these two bodies, and is the Puruṣa, which is also known as the Īśvara, the self of all. It is present in every form, means every object, and yet transcends them all. Now, Vidyaranya is giving a very beautiful commentary to that. Idanim purvoktam artham upasamharati. The previously explained meaning in the verses 38 and 39 is being summarized in a nutshell in this verse. Evam iti. Evam means evam prakarena. Evam purvokta prakarena. As described in the previous two verses, dehadvayad anyaha binnaha atma. Dehadvayad. Sthūla sūkṣma lakshanāt. Anyaha means binnaha, is separate. Dehadvaya means gross and the subtle bodies. Anyaha means different from them or separate from them. Is Atma. So the Purvapakshi is now asking, Ko asau, Kah asau, and who is the self then? Aha Puruṣa iti. That who is Anyaha, who is different from the two gross body and subtle body, is the self. Puruṣa iti is known as the Puruṣa. Puruṣa sharira adhisthāta. Adhisthāta means indweller, or one who is using the substratum or using the body as for the performance. It is using the body as indweller, the substratum of the body. So here it is adhisthāta. Puruṣa is the adhisthāta for the sharira. It is not the other way around. The sharira is an appearance in the self, not that Puruṣa is operating through the body. That is what we all think, that Atma is functioning through our body. But if you remember carefully the last class, it was very clearly mentioned that there is a superimposition. Therefore, anyonyasmin anyonyatmagatam idaredara bhavanupattau siddhayam. That is how the Adhyashavashya talks about it. The qualities of the sharira is now superimposed on the Atma, where there is no quality, and the Chaitanya of Atma is now transferred to the sthūla sharira for like the mind, intellect, etc. and feel that they are the Atma is the karta and sthūla sharira, the sūkṣma sharira, etc. are the, instruments for functioning. So that is therefore the adhishtada, sharira adhishtada, if you break it that way, then Puruṣa becomes the adhishtada or the substratum for the sharira. Or if you are under the superimposition, or if you are under the delusion, you will think that the Puruṣa or the Atma is now depending upon the body, therefore it is residing in the body. Because indweller is the word used for the word adhishtada. So that is why the meaning can be confusing if you do not break it up properly in the Sanskrit one. Tarhi kim jīva? So the Purupakshi is still asking a question. If that is the case, if the indweller or if Sharira is using Puruṣa as the substratum, then what the hell is the Jīva is what we are referring to? Then is the Puruṣa the Jīva? That is a question which is being asked. Na iti aha. So the Siddhanti says, or the Vedanti says that no. The text itself is saying na iti. Īśvara iti. Because Puruṣa, Īśvara is immediately following that word. To show that he is the Supreme Lord. He is the Īśvara. Ishita, one who is a controller of everything. So when he is the controller, in his presence only everything can be controlled. Therefore he is Īśvara. Which one? That's Puruṣa. So it is not the Jīva. Jīva is the feeling of the I in the mind, body, intellect. That is what is called the Jīva. The feeling of the presence of Atma felt in the mind, intellect, etc. is the reason why the mind now assumes I am the one who is doing everything. Therefore, the ego is actually that of the mind. Now, it is the ego which is creating the sense of the one which I am the knower. I know what is happening in the mind. All those things, the Sakshi Bhava also is being superimposed by the aham or the ego, thinking that the ego is the Sakshi. But even ego is being known from the self point of view. That ego is not knowing. So as long as the ego is alive and functional, the self is hidden by the ego. Therefore, the ego assumes now the role of the self, the ahankara, or the aham, that manobuddhi, ahankara, chitta, the functions of the mind, subtle body. There the ahankara is the one where the individuality is residing. There is no individuality in reality. The feeling of the individuality is the jivatva. But here it is said that Puruṣa is sharira adhishtada. It is the self in which the body is appearing, or the body is functioning because of the self. So actually speaking, the body independently is not an entity at all. Therefore, the ego which is depending upon the body cannot be independently existing and owning that whole thing. This is very clear to us when we are in our deep sleep. We don't have the ego. We don't know the individuality in this thing. So that is why it is called Īśvara, also called sarvātmā. Why? Tatra hedu sarvātmā iti. The reason why he is called an Īśvara is because he is sarvātmā. This aham feeling of the self, it is not with anything individual. See, if one person is feeling the aham, then you can say it is individualistic. But this aham feeling, or that I am feeling, is there for every living being which has got a mind. And in the case of non-living beings, we are not knowing because they don't have a mind or the sense organs to exhibit that. So at least considering this living things, even a cow has a feeling of self, a dog has a feeling of I, an elephant has, a flower has, a butterfly has, a mosquito has, a human being has. So that sarvātmatvam is the hetu why the Puruṣa is now attributed at the term as Īśvara. So the Purvapakshi is still not very convinced about it. He is asking, Tarhi Advaita hani syat svarūpa iti. Atyata aha svarūpa iti. Then wouldn't it be violate the non-duality of Advaita because it is sarvātmā. It is presiding in every Atma. Then you are saying that ekam, Atma is only one. Sa ekaha, sa ekam vit. We have studied this in the Taittiriya. So, if it is there in the cow, it is there in the flower, it is there in the mosquito, it is there in the butterfly, it is there in the human being, then it is non-dual. It is dual. Multiplicity is there. It is why it is clarified now. Tatra idam aha svarūpa iti. Svarūpa. The self is the essential nature. The real meaning of the word is nature, but here we have to take it as the essential nature, contrary to the multiplicity. There is a nature of inevitable nature in every one of them, essential nature, where the feeling of I-ness, irrespective of which body is there, it is common to everything. It is not dependent upon the size of the body or the activities of the body or any of the bodily functions. The I-ness which is being felt by a human being, the I-ness which is being felt by a cow or a dog or a horse, or the I-ness which is being felt by a mosquito or a butterfly or a honeybee, all of them are the same. There is no difference in their I-ness, because that the sense of I-ness or the individuality, which later they exhibit through the functioning of the body, is dependent upon the self. Therefore, the non-duality is not violated, because the svarūpa is the same for in every body. Evam sati vikaritvam syat ityata aha sarvātīta iti. If now you are saying non-duality is not broken, even so, wouldn't he be then subject to change or vikara? Because the size of a mosquito is different where the I-ness is there to a size of an elephant where I-ness is there to a human being, to a cow, to a dog, etc. So vikara, the changes in the body, is visible to all of us, even though they are all showing I-ness? No. The answer is that sarvātīta. Even though we attribute that all these things are sharirādhisthāta, these bodies of the elephant to the mosquito, to the human being, to the dog, everything, all the body is now using the substratum of the one self, which is common to all, that is sarvātmā, which is sarvātīta, which is beyond, limitations of the body, and it is also svarūpa, because why? It is one Atma which is present in every body, or which every body is depending upon that one Atma. So what happens is that the I-ness of the Atma is not changing from whether it is an elephant or a mosquito or a human being to a dog. Therefore, sarvātīta. It is beyond. Atita means beyond. Sarvātīta means beyond all. All here is definiting, depending upon, is indicating of the body. Means it is beyond the bodies of all, because the bodies are appearing in the Atma, and Atma is common in everything, and therefore it is sarvātmā, it is uniform in everything, because it is the same. It is in the same space, all the objects in the space are appearing. Therefore, the space is not getting affected by that. There is no vikaritvam. The space doesn't become small space, big space, even though we may say that room is small, that hall is big, etc. It is the body of the room or the body of the hall which is making it big and small. The space in which they are appearing is untouched by whether it is the room is small or a big, or it is the body of a mosquito or body of an elephant or body of a man or a body of a dog or a cow. So there is no vikaritvam also in that, and it is atita. It is beyond the limitations of the size of the body, the Atma in which the bodies are appearing. So the opponent or the Purvapakshi is thinking, scratching his head and trying to find out, where can I see something like that? Etadrisha Atma chet asti tarhi kuta na upalabhyate. So the question is being asked. If such a sort of Atma is there, asti chet, tarhi, then kuta na upalabhyate. Why is it not being perceived, or why cannot it be perceived by, if such a thing is existing, then it should be available for perception. To this, ityataha aham iti. The answer is given is aham. Aham pratyaksha. Aham shabda pratyaya alambatvena. Alambanattvena. This aham pratyaksha. Pratyaksha means it is directly perceivable. This self is directly perceivable. Why? Aham shabda pratyayalambanattvena. As the substratum of the notion of I, not the individuality I. It is the substratum of the notion of I. The notion of I, or in the sthūla sharira, is using the substratum of Atma, which is also I. This is where the confusion takes place. One side is Atma, which is also the self. The individuality is also self. So what is which self? One of them is Pratyaksha. The other one is not Pratyaksha. Shabda Pratyaya Alambanattvena. That is the word which we have to remember. Shabda Pratyaya means the notion of the word I. Alambanattvena means being the substratum for that. Is Aham Pratyaksha. That means the Pratyaksha Aham is the ego. Whereas the self, which is Atma, is not Pratyaksha. It is Aparoksha. Aparoksha means Pratyaksha, but it is not Pratyaksha. Sarvada Ubalabdhi Svarūpa iti arthaha. This means that this self or Atma is of the nature of constant awareness, always present as consciousness or awareness. It can never be unconscious or non-aware of its presence. Whereas the I, Shabda Pratyaya Alambana, Aham, that notion of I is absent in the dream and the deep sleep. So therefore it is not permanent, constant, nitya nasti. So there is a nitya I or I-ness which is eternal in nature, irrespective whether we are experiencing the individuality or not. Sarvada Ubalabdhi Svarūpa iti arthaha. That svarūpa of Ubalabdhi. Ubalabdhi means present, always present. Ubalabdhi means is available. Availability, that is the better word. Availability of its own being as consciousness or awareness. That is what is called the Ubalabdhi Svarūpa. And that is never vanishing or never either increasing, decreasing or unavailable at any point of time. Sarvada. The word sarvada means eternally or consistently as nature of awareness. That is the meaning one when we say that is the one which is the substratum for the ego. Because the ego comes and goes. Therefore, aham shabda pratyaya alambanattvena, aham pratyaksha is now depending upon the upalabdhi svarūpa aham. Tarihi ahankara syat, that so the Purva Pakshi could not make a difference between the two. In that case, is it ego? Na iti aha avyaya iti. No. Because self is said to be avyaya, unchanging, without decay, modification or affliction or any of that type. Whereas ahankara is changing. The ahankara of the waker is not the ahankara of the dreamer. Or the individuality of the waker is not the individuality of the dreamer. And the individuality of both are absent in the deep sleep. And the nature of individuality in waking and in dream, is ever changing. Even though there is some sort of a consistency in the waking, the individuality which is being felt by us from childhood till now, as human beings or male or female, we did not have the male-female feeling until we realized we are adolescents. As toddlers or, before teenage, we never knew that the sense of male-female, I am a male, I am a female, until somebody taught us those things. By ourselves, we never knew it. And also, the individuality as a toddler to the old man or a old lady, even though the feeling, sense of I, individuality is there, the reference of the individuality of the ego has undergone changes. While accepting the change, we also changed it, saying that now I am middle-aged man, now I am old man, or now I am a youngster. That I am the ego is now becoming the youngster to the middle-aged man or to the old age. Therefore, it is changing. Whereas Atma, the self, is avyayaha. Avyayaha means unchanging. The sense of I-ness, we never had it until we were told to look at it. Always we thought the ego is the I-ness. Only when we were told by the Upanishad, the teacher or the Advaita, that beyond your manobuddhi ahankara chitta and the physical body, there is the Atma or the self or the I in you, which has remained unchanging. We never even bothered to turn inside and look at it, because we were dependent upon the sense organs and the mind, which we explained in the last class. So what happened was that Kathopanishad song, mantra is very important. Paranchigani vidranat soyambu tasmat parang pashyati na antaratman. Because the sense organs are always capable of only sensing with the world outside from the body point of view, they never knew how to look inward. Parang pashyati na antaratman. So this Atma was never an object of interest for the sense organs. Kashchid dhiraha, dhimantaha. One courageous, intelligent person, pratyekatmanam aichat. He realized his own self. Pratyekatmana means his own self. How? Avrta chakshu amritattvam icchan. When he looked into which is the changing and which is the changeless, that is what is called viveka. Nitya nitya vastu viveka. When he started inquiring into the changing and changeless, he moved from the changing toward the changeless. From the external world to his own physical body, to his body, mind, intellect, and constantly in Andakarana, and into the beyond Andakarana, when he turned looking that direction, instead of looking toward the world, from the world he started looking inward, backward. Avrta chakshu. That is the time when pratyekatmanam aikchat, means he saw his own self. What is the nature of that? Avyayaha. It is unchanging. That self which is even the support for my individuality ego. When I am able to dissolve my ego, or when I do not have the ego, the I-ness, I could not say I vanished or I died or I never was there when in my deep sleep, when the individuality was not being sensed or perceived or experienced. That state where the mind didn't exist, mana, buddhi, ahankara, chitta, none of them existed. Forget about the physicality, the locality, the time, the space, everything. Yet, when I was not knowing anything means everything that can be included from the world of waking and being. All that put together is in the one word anything. That was not perceivable by me, or I have no knowledge of anything. I was the waker, not the I of the dreamer. Neither the waker nor the dreamer was there. So I cannot say the mind-body complex of the waker, which is the individuality of which I am thinking that I am window and I am. You're able to hear me?
Your audio got really weak a minute or two ago, and I tried to speak, but you couldn't hear me. I was trying to message you. Just let's all be patient. There was one time when he actually had to reset his whole phone and start again.
Okay. See, then the Purva Pakshi asks, if that is the case, is it ahankara, which is being are you, which you are indicating towards as the self? So he says, no, na iti aha avyayaha. That means the nature of the self is unchanging without decay or modification. So what happens is that from childhood onwards till now, we have been seeing that the changes of the ego and the related association with our bodies. Most of the ego activities were based on either the mind, mental activities, or the body, physical activities. It was never free of any of inhibitions or any of the attachments to the body. Therefore, the ego also kept on changing depending on whether we were toddlers to teenagers to the middle age or the old age. When these changes were taking place, we never knew to look toward the unchanging I. I don't know whether I'm repeating this again. So the Kathopanishad mantra, which discusses about the sense organs which is turned outward, and only when we are told to look inward by the Upanishad or the teacher or the spiritual path which we took, we started looking beyond the body, mind, intellect. And only then we knew the very existence that there is something beyond this. And we started analyzing our own experiences of waker, dreamer, and deep sleeper. The ego of the waker is different from the ego of the dreamer, which we know. And there was no ego associated with the deep sleeper who says that I know nothing. The absence of the waking experiences and the dream experiences with the respective egos of the dreamer and the waker is not present in the deep sleep. Therefore, I started at least acknowledging that there is a stage where I do not have my ego. But I do not know what is the nature of that. That is the time when the Shastra comes in for helping us by giving the definitions like svarūpa, Advaita, sarvātmā, etc. And the one word which is that avyaya means you should develop the viveka, which is differentiating between nitya. what is Nitya and what is Anitya. So when we do this analysis of Nitya and Anitya, is the only way we can know that which is the Nitya aspect in me, which is the self, the true self, the one which is aware or conscious of every change. The changeless one which is aware of, conscious of every change, has to be the consciousness or the awareness which is my nature, svarūpa. So until that is known by the enquiry, we are still not in a state to say that I am the awareness. Because the whole problem is that there is no transaction possible in the awareness, in the consciousness. Because there is no two in it. You need two for a transaction. There is no duality in that state of awareness, which we know in our deep sleep we do not have duality. Even when I assume that I am awareness in my deep sleep, I am not able to accept that I am the awareness in my deep sleep, because as awareness or consciousness, I should be knowing my prana happening in my body, my bodily functions happening. If heat or cold is touching my body, I should know it. These type of feeling will come. Now, when we really analyze these doubts which is coming, this is all called samshaya viparya, or the things which are inhibiting our knowledge. What is that? What is that saying that the awareness which I am as to be known in the deep sleep, where there is nothing else to be known? All these things we are thinking, analyzing and evaluating using the waker's mind. And when we are in waking, we can never know what we were in our deep sleep. Same is the case. When we are in waking, we cannot know what was when we were in dream. And when we are in dream, we do not know what we were in waking or what we were in our deep sleep. So the three are mutually exclusive. But the analysis which we can do is only possible in our waking. So what we do is that trying to mentally create an image of ourselves as awareness and consciousness. That is my svarūpa. Even though Shastra says that Satyam Jnanam Anandam or Satchidanandam, so Chit or Jnanam should be my nature or my within. It is neither Chit or Jnanam. They are all lakshyarthas. They are only indicating to a location or a state or a placeholder rather than a location, for the mind to use these indicators as poles for vaulting across the body, mind, intellect overbearance with us thinking we are the individuality. Only when the ego is put it in the dustbin of the waking, in the waking, when we put our ego in the dustbin, ego means not only our egoistic tendencies, but even the sense of I am the body, mind, intellect. That is why in this particular verses, Shankaracharya is hammering upon again and again saying, Deha Bedam, that Dehad Anyaha. No, how can you think that you are the Deha? Deha means sthūla, sūkṣma, sharira. That, as long as that is there and identifying there, the ego cannot be removed. But unless we remove the ego, we will not know our consciousness nature, because all the awareness and consciousness which is now being imposed upon or assumed by us to be happening is because the ego is the one which is saying, I am the knower, I am the eater, I am the walker, I am the sleeper, I am the dreamer, I am the... All this I amness is associated to the individual. When we have these identifications, we will never be able to go to our truer nature, svarūpa. The Shastra is showing us the way. The teacher is telling the methods. The Upanishad is giving the mantras for us to do Shravana Manana Nididhyasana. Yet, Samshaya Viparyaya in the ego will hold us from achieving it. Unless and until we come to a Atma-huti, that Atma there is the ego. Ego-huti, or the annihilation of the individuality. By knowledge, through knowledge, using the indicators like Satyajnanam Anantam or Satchidanandam, we will never be able to be devoid of the individuality. It is not impossible. It is not something which is unapproachable or unattainable. Shastra is itself is a promissory note for us. Yet sakshat aparokshat brahma. Prajnanam brahma. All those things, I am Atma Brahma. All those things are indicating, saying that Tadattvamasi. All we have to say is Aham Brahmasmi. That Aham has to be not the ego, but the real Aham, the self in me, not in me alone. It is sarvātmā. Only when I know the I of me is sarvātmā, I can say that I have dusted and dumped the ego into the dustbin, and I now realize that I am sarvātmā. I am the indweller of every creation in this world. I see myself in everything. I cannot see you or this or that as separate from me. Yatra na anyat pasyati, anyat shrunoti, anyat vijani. Anyat, in the form of otherness. I do not know anything. I do not see anything. I do not hear anything. I do not have anything. That is the time when I am sarvātmā. Sarvāndara. Sarvavyapi. Sarvātīta. Avyayaha. And all those words are true and relevant only when that ego is tested. Until then, we'll think that the knowledge which is happening or the awareness which is happening, even in waking, dream, everything is, I am the knower. The I should not be the ego. There is no knowing taking place. There is no awareness other than myself. There is nothing other than awareness. What I am seeing, if I am seeing it as a mosquito or an elephant separate from me or separate from Atma, then that separateness is the problem with which I will not be able to see the Atma. the following verses, when we go further, Shankaracharya is taking us step by step into those places where I have just started a beginning or indicated those things. So, to sum up, if we go to the self is distinct from the two bodies, that is the sthūla and sūkṣma, gross and subtle. And it is the Puruṣa, the consciousness which is indwelling or as for the substratum for the body. The self is the Puruṣa, is the substratum for the indwelling consciousness, means the ego, and the substratum of the body. So don't confuse that to be the jīva, which we said that, because he is Īśvara. That substratum is the Īśvara. But if the identification of the individuality comes, then it is a jīva. So the ego association with the consciousness, thinking that I am aware of, I am the one which is that with the sthūla, sūkṣma, sorry and body, is the jīva. But the jīva is a reflection in the self. The jīva has no independent existence. Why? Because the self of all, every one of us have the self. And everyone feels that I am. The ego is saying I am, but the ego's dependency is on the self. And that is being common for an elephant to an ant or a mosquito to human beings to horse, cow, etc. And since it is present in everybody, it is not violating the what you call Advaitic principle. Because it is the svarūpa of every Atma in every body is the svarūpa. Therefore, it is one and the same. There is only one Atma which is being in which, like one space in which everything is remaining, doesn't mean the space has become multiple. No, it has not. And therefore, sarvātīta, again, it is beyond the individualities of everything. Therefore, sarvātīta means beyond all the bodies and qualities and changes, etc. And the I experience in every experience, the ego, the I thought, is depending upon an ever-present awareness which is avyaya. Ever-present means avyaya. That awareness which is ever-present, depending upon that only the I thought comes, the aham thought, or the ego thought, or the individuality thought. And that keeps changing. But depend upon, it is just like the same electricity. When it is in the fan, you get wind. When it is in a bulb, you get light. When it is in a motor, it rotates. The same thing appears in different bodies. Doesn't mean that it has become multiple. No, the electricity is the same. The same is the awareness. Whether it is the awareness in a mosquito or in an elephant. An elephant can trample and walk through all those things with all the heavy walk. And a mosquito can fly and, drink blood, become a non-vegetarian. Doesn't mean that it is not Atma. That non-vegetarian eating, blood-sucking mosquito is also Atma. So we bring in all sorts of distinctions and differences. Atma is one and the same, in which everything is appearing. So don't think the ahankara is the self which is being referred here. It is a sakshi chet kevalo nirgunascha. It is the witness of even the ego. I am sensing my individuality. I can perceive my individuality of my waker Now I can imagine about my perceiver, the individuality of the dream when I was in the dream, but not while dreaming. Therefore, we have to use the waking to get rid of the individuality which is controlling us. How to do that? The coming verses are explaining one by one. There are next 3-4 verses are dealing only with that. That's why I'm taking time for each verse. Even today, even though we have done only one verse, justice has to be done for this verse. Therefore, I took time to explain that. We will deal the 41st verse in the next class. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you. If my voice breaks and if I'm not able to talk or anything, if you are finding my thing, one of you can call me on my mobile and entreat me rather than making statement. In the class, if you make announcement, since there is no two-way communication, I may not even know such a thing has happened.
Okay.
It so happened I able to see a message in my watch that my voice is not being heard. That's why I had to stop and attend to that whole thing. Thank you for Achintya. Thank you for informing on the message.
So we'll remember that to call. Okay, once you reset your phone, everything was really good, and you just backtracked a little bit, so I think everything was covered. But regardless, thank you so much, Bindaji. So yeah, I have to say this. I thought that this particular class was particularly well done and really beautiful, and just the really ordinary language that you use, like early on. Talking about, well, here, let's focus for now on what we know are life forms to just set some people's mind at ease. And then you talked about, how there's an I that's present regardless of experiencing that I, in the usual dualistic way. It was just so well done and so clear. And, so I just want to thank you and invite anyone who would like to come up to talk. While we wait to see if we get any hand raising to speak with Bindaji about the class. I'll also say that I felt like what you did today was in a tone of what you said at the very end, which is, this is really something that is entirely possible, and that's what we're here to learn about and find our way into. And it reminded me of that question in the talk and satsang that you gave when you were traveling home from the retreat, where that man asked you, one of the questions from the audience was, "Are you an ordinary man?" He said to you, and you said yes. And I think this is so important to realize that this is, we don't recognize what we are already, so we count our ordinariness as something insufficient. But it's not insufficient. And so thank you so much for being exactly what you are. I just was really happy with today's lecture. And I would love it if anyone would want to come up and raise your hand. Prakash will bring you up. Wonderful. Welcome, Srini. I'm really happy you're up here. Please go ahead. Karen, Ganesh.
Hi, Namaste, Vindaji. I think really beautiful session. Like Artemisia said, I think you covered many subtle aspects. So, yeah, actually, I came up with a silly question, like because I think that's what came when I was listening to you. So, especially like on these things, like you are mentioning the so-called the perceptions or whatever we call it, the level of ego, right? Like for example, in a simple way, as a ego, we see like, for example, different people or countries and all these things, what we observe, the Vyavaharika reality, right? So now at that level, there is a kind of perception or a chaitanya or what we call it, like that kind of thing, right? The, like how we are different from a rock, right? Like to respond, and so we have some memory and this kind of functions. Now, that kind of thing, does it, like for example, if we ask the question, like from the point of view of Atma or something, is the reality visible the way it is visible to the ego? Like it's like a mythological question, I feel, but I just want to get some opinion on. Did you ever think of this way, or what is your opinion on that? It might be completely bad question, but yeah.
No, it's not a mad question. It's absolutely not a mad question. It's a question which is running in everybody's mind, but only, a courageous person like you can come and ask this question.
Kaschid dhīrah.
Yes, absolutely. But the dhīra should also do certain things. You should do the avrta chakshu. I mean, you have to do the, shifting to the placeholder, which I was referring to. This awareness is not something which is different from you this very moment. You are that. Not only you, everything is that. But what happens is that our identification is not on that. We still feel that we are the body-mind-intellect complex. Intellectually, we are able to do this thing. Philosophically and technically, ideologically, we will be able to agree to all the statements. But when it comes to leaving your hand for getting down from a running train or a bus, if you don't do that, you can never get out of the train. The bus or the train will take you wherever it wants to. That is what's happening with all our life. We are not letting go to get down from this bandwagon of what you call the humanity or human experience which we are having. Having human experience is not a bad thing, as long as you know who you are. We were in the dream, but we did not know who we were. Therefore, we felt that dream world is different, I am different. But in a lucid dream, where you have a faint idea who you are as a waker, at the same time, you exactly don't know whether you are waking or dreaming, you are in a lucid dream. That time, with the knowledge that you are the waker, you experience hallucinations or subtle world. When that is happening, we are not associating ourselves with ourself. We are associating with our waker. But when you know who you are, you can be in that self, be in the waker, be in the dreamer, and the deep sleeper is not a separate thing. And from that, it is not this mind which will be experiencing the things. You will be experiencing the mind in the light of that self. Right now what is happening? The mind of the ego is trying to look to the source of the self, but the ego is standing in between. Therefore, the mind is able to see only the ego. That is why I said, unless we dump the ego in our dustbin, the mind cannot see the self when we do the avarta chakshu, when we look inward. How can we do that? To dump the ego. to dumb the ego, we should know the dependencies of the ego. What is that makes ego so strong that we all feel the individuality? The moment you know the dependencies of the ego, and when you know that that is the handle with which the ego is, giving the key to our motor of humanity experience. The key is no more there because the dependency is taken away. The ego doesn't stand as an ego anymore. It becomes vanished and the self replaces its place. Thereafter, the ego can never appear because the dependencies are gone. The self now takes the place of the ego, and the same mind, body, intellect will function in that self, not having anymore the ego that I am the limited individual functioning through this body, whereas I will be able to see the self in me is the self in everything, and therefore the appearances by name and form are all in me, in my awareness or consciousness, and that consciousness is the reality. Even I do not have the name and form which is of mine because the ego has gone. So the body and the name and the form of the mind or the individuality of Bindo is no more Bindos. It becomes that of the self. Therefore, we see that statement of Narada's, the Sanat Kumara to Narada comes true at that time. Yatra anyat pasyati anyat shrunoti anyat vijayati. Anyat, as if something separate from me. This is exactly what is being told in the Taittiriya when it said, Idaramantaram gurudaya tasyam bhayam bhavati. Or if you go to Brihadaranya, it says, Dvitiyad vai bhayam bhavati. All these places that it is the separation which is being created by the non-existent ego which is giving rise to our problems of individuality. That can be removed only when the dependencies or the strength for the ego, whereby the ego becomes stronger, is identified. And the moment you identify, you are the self which is identifying, the ego has to vanish. It is as good as the ghost which we were seeing in the post vanishes when we know it is a post. The ghost is no more there. Same way, when we know our true nature of ourself, this ego which is a ghost controlling me as Bindo or you as Rini can never stand there anymore. It has no existence because it is non-existent one. That is why it is called superimposition, Maya or Avidya, all those names for it.
Thank you, Bindaji. I think the train example is beautifully nailed it. I think. Thank you for giving the answer. And one small follow-up. This is a little bit technical, meaning whenever this in word is used, right? It's like things are functioning in awareness. Somehow it feels to me like it is pointing towards some swagata bheda, like something, the Veda exists within. So this in is something, I think you are using it in some way, but I am unable to catch it the way you are using it when you say these experiences are happening in awareness. So can you maybe clarify, like paraphrase it or something like that?
The best example which can be given is everything is appearing in space when I am saying. There is no Swagata Bheda in space. Within the space is one and the same for everything. The body uses the space. Inside the object there is space. Outside there is space. Where will you bifurcate the space when I am saying inside the space or in the space everything appears? Now even space appears in awareness. So it is subtler than the space, which is permissive in such a way that it is sarvagata. And it is not limited to anything, that it can never limit anything appearing, because it will never become full. By any number of things coming in the space will be never full. It will never come a time when everything in the space has been filled up and there is no more space for one more thing to come up. Can you ever imagine that type of a space where then there is, therefore it is Advaita, sarvātīta. That is the time when it is said that, or sarvātīta, that word comes valid there. So we have to, now when I am using the word in, it is the word which is to indicate this vastness, not in the time and space manner, but the potency in which inclusiveness for everything. Nothing can be outside it. Therefore, everything is in it. That is how you have to understand that.
Yeah, thank you, Vinay. Beautiful. Thank you for explaining that. Thank you. Yeah, bye.
Thank you, Srini.
Bindu? I was just,
Yes,
and then Karen, I was just remembering what Srini's first comments reminded me of was there was a time when you were talking long ago about ego as like a filter or that comes in between, that shades things, and then that's just pulled out. And so when that shade or filter that you were talking about ego as is gone, it doesn't, strip away any of these other things that need to remain for all of our normal functioning, like Srini was talking about. I was just thinking about that metaphor that you had once used.
yeah, it can be used, that metaphor also. Sometimes, and I don't know whether I used it here, it is just like wearing a shaded glass. The things are there, you are there, you are watching them. Because of the color of the glass, you are seeing everything blue or yellow, whatever may be the color of the glass. And that is exactly what is happening. Everything is painted now because of the color of the glass. You paint everything as yellow or blue or whatever may be the shade of the glass. The moment that shade goes, then you see everything in its purity, in their own nature, or in the pure color, what they are supposed to be seen. And that shaded glass is the ego, which I don't know whether I've used this example before or not.
Yeah, that's the one exactly that I was trying to point to was a couple of years ago, probably. So beautiful. I'm glad you said a little more. Welcome, Karen, just 1 second to make sure. Oh, I didn't realize what time it is. Why don't you just go ahead and take all the time you need, Karen? I'll probably turn hand raising off here in a moment, everybody. And just so you all know, basically in 48 hours on Sunday, 8:30 p.m. IST, there's an open discussion for a full hour and a half. So if you have, remaining questions and comments besides the people who are already on the speaker panel, join us then. But Karen and Ganesh, take all the time you want.
Thank you, Artemisha. Namaste, Binduji, and everyone.
Namaste.
Namaste. When you were speaking about the body, mind, intellect, and that the identification that the jīva is identifying with the body, mind, and intellect, that means that the jīva is saying, I have intellect, I have a body, I have a mind. So
Yes.
when you recognize that, and then in the process of recognizing that you are not the body, mind, intellect, we use the process of neti. So once that is done, whatever is left over is what you are, because you are not able to describe it. But once you are in that position of knowing who you are, there is no need to deny the intellect, body, and mind, because it's appearing within Atman, within you. there is a trap, because a lot of people say, I know who I am, but intellect belongs to the mind. Even though intellect it doesn't belong to the mind. It doesn't belong to the I of the ego I. So it does belong to the Atman, does it not? Because it gets denied every time that there is no intellect once you are Atman. Because if Atman is God, if you are all, just use a simple name as God, then intellect has to be part of that. Otherwise you wouldn't be able to come up with this.
Well, Karan, a cloud is moving, let us say, from Germany to Norway. The cloud has no association whether it is a German cloud or a Norway cloud. It will just move from, it is just moving as per the wind is moving. But the people from on the ground, they will identify, oh, the cloud is in my airspace, or they will identify to their space. Now, the space in which the cloud is moving has no limitation whether it is a German or a Norwegian. It is the same space in which everything is moving. Same way, when we identify ourselves with ourself, which is beyond the space, the functioning of mind, intellect is no more my intellect or my mind. Because the I, ego has gone. When that is gone, it is no more my intellect or my mind which is there. So how can that such a person have any individuality to say that statement of that it is my body and my mind and intellect and my body? It is all in me, which is, it is appearing. The space is appearing in me, the mind is appearing in me, the intellect is appearing in me, this body is appearing in me, not the me, the ego. See, the problem is that when I am using the word me, everybody will try to identify with their own individualistic ego. They will not be able to see it from the self, the awareness, which is, there is no you, me different from that. So when I'm saying me, you should not, I'm not saying it is not yours. I'm saying it is mine, it is yours also at the same time. But what happens is that the people who are not understood that will not be able to identify that. So they will think that this is happening to this person, that is happening to that person. And they do not know the difference between that. That is what the famous examples, that jnani lives because his body is undergoing prarabdha. The one who is seeing the body of the jnani will say that jnani has prarabdha, that is why the body is going through the prarabdha of this thing. And after he throws this body, there is no more prarabdha. But there is no such thing. The moment you realize that you are not the body, there is no prarabdha for you, because the body is not yours. There is no karma for you. There is no reaction for you. Everything is not there as what you are experiencing as the individual. There is individuality is the one which is blocking you to know it. So until you remove that individuality ego, you cannot appreciate this, or you cannot even fathom what is being told by the Shastra or in the book or the Upanishads. They can only tell the taste of the pudding has to be by taking it. You have to take it. Then only you will know it.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Karan.
That was totally beautiful response, Binduji. Thank you. And we could hear it in your voice. I could hear you smiling. Ganesh, take the time that you need. Welcome.
Good evening, Binduji. Namaste.
Good evening, Ganesh. How are you?
Today I'm fine, and today's class is marvelous. And I have one question, just a clarification. Will the following verses be about this annihilation of individuality or the removal of this aham pratyaksha, that is ego?
Yes. It will help. The stage by stage, there are 3 to 4 verses which will be where we'll, I think it is up to 41 and 30, 41 to 44, I think. I don't remember the numbers exactly. Now 2-3 verses are there where Shankaracharya is really, hammering the nail to such an extent that if we really imbibe what he is telling us to understand,
the ego will be annihilated.
There cannot be any question anymore.
Yeah. Today itself, I could feed everything. When you said that the last sentence, the further verses would be taking us to those realms where really this annihilation would take place, like that you told. Again, till then, I was thinking that, yes, we have reached today, especially those 2, aham pratyaksha and aham aparoksha, that discrimination that you did, it was fantastic. And I'm blissful today. Thank you, Binduji.
Thank you, Ganesh.
All right. Thank you, everybody, so much. The people who came up really elicited beautiful answers. I love what you asked, Karen, especially because of the answer then that we got to listen to. So very beautiful. I won't repeat the upcoming changes in schedule. Just for everybody to know that if you listen to the beginning of this room today, on replay, it'll explain how week after next the schedule for these rooms will be changing. But next week will be as usual. And oh, that's odd. My phone kind of acted strange. I hope everyone can hear me. We'll have a open discussion Q&A type satsang on Sunday here at the usual time, 8:30 p.m. IST, 11 a.m. Eastern. And what else? Listen to the replays here and on the YouTube channel, Advaita Retold. Any class or discussion here usually appears there within a few days, but there are other beautiful classes to listen to. So, boy, my phone is really giving me trouble. I apologize if it blacked out for a moment. I think that's everything. Prakash, did I miss anything? Do you want to add anything? And then turn it over to Binduji, please.
No, everything is good. So next week we have the same schedule. It's only after the. So is there going to be a break, Binduji, after you travel, or will the class?
Only not this Sunday. The following Sunday, we won't have an open discussion. That just one day will be off.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Binduji. Over to you.
Thank you, Atmisha. Thank you, Prakash, Srini, Karin, and Ganesh Prasad for your questions. And thank you all for listening to the room. Hope you are getting benefited by this series of explanations from Vidyaranya on Shankara's Aparokshanubhuti. 144 verses are there. We are on the 40th verse. We finished just 40. So you can imagine how many days we will need for the rest of the thing to be completed. Anyway, see you Sunday for the open session. And next Wednesday, we'll continue with the balance of the Aparokshanubhuti. Thank you all. Hari Om. Good night.
Hari Om.
Thank you, Binduji. Hari Om.
Hari Om. Thank you.